Welcome to this week's production of Megabyte Me, where we go beyond the noise and infuse humanity into technology in a podcast designed to tell Americans' broadband stories of yesterday, today, and tomorrow. I'm really excited today to have our first guest joining us, Mr. David Brady, the president of C-Tech, an organization focused on workforce training and development across the broadband industry. It's really an honor to have somebody like C-Tech joining us here today to talk about a very critical topic, which is workforce development.
Thank you for having us.
Absolutely.
What better place to be than in Southern California on a winery?
It's worse places to be shooting, right?
Absolutely.
And accommodations okay?
Absolutely.
Awesome. Well, we're really happy to have you out as one of our guests here for the show. And as I mentioned, a big focus of what we're doing here is to make sure people understand where the opportunities exist. I realize, both working from the federal side and then on the industry side, and also being a former tribal leader and political, there's a lot of confusion out there right now.
Sure.
What I want to share with the listeners today is why you're here. This show is meant to really get to the heart of who people are behind the industry and not so much about the product, although we'll talk about that a little bit. As many of you know, I tend to value the relationships more than I do the product in anything that I do, because things break, but the relationships that stand true are, I think, the most important thing that folks are looking for at this day and age. I ran David through the ringer as it relates to C-Tech because of the critical component that workforce training provides today. David, C-Tech has been in this space for a minute, but C-Tech is a family-owned business. So do you mind sharing with us a little bit about the foundation of the organization and how you've gone from planting that seed to what it's blossomed into today?
Absolutely. No, It's been an interesting journey over the years. My father was an entrepreneur, and he came out of the computer mainframe industry back in the 60s when, computers bigger than this room were controlling everything in all the financial institutions around the country. And he got involved early on, and he saw an opportunity to impact the market through networking, right? So one of the first things that we did as an organization is we manufactured diagnostic test equipment under private label for an organization, and we were shipping it out worldwide. And that's really what launched C-Tech. And as we got involved in the market and the networking and connectivity started to evolve well before what broadband is today, we saw an opportunity to help people get into this industry and ultimately changing lives. And I share that because C-Tech not only works in the workforce development systems that you encounter all around the country in your public schools, your community colleges, your secondary high schools, but we also work with justice-impacted individuals in juvenile and youth correctional settings, and that is just tremendous in terms of the lives and the impact that we're able to have.
So if I could, as I mentioned, we kicked this show off, one of the things that I did to run David through the ringer was understand exactly what he meant when he said justice impacted. For those of you that I've gotten to know over the years, which I'm assuming you're listening because we've gotten to know each other over the years, right? I think one of the biggest things that folks have gotten to know the communities that I've worked in is that at times heavy impacts from justice impacted situations, right? Folks that have spent some time in the system and are looking for an opportunity. I think one of the things that you and I hit off right from the beginning was a recognition that job opportunities and credentials and the opportunity to have a win under your belt is what so many people in the communities such as mine are looking for. And you guys have been able to demonstrate some really big wins with some really what folks would often tag as challenged populations.
Right.
How does that work? How does that work evolve for you, and what rewards does that bring for you individually or as an organization?
Sure. So it's all about the model and how you break it down to meet the students where they are in their journey to learn a skill or in the academic process. And with that, we've got it down to where we provide the training aids integrated with the curriculum, the student-centered learning environment, all instructor-led. So you have a mentor, if you would, in the classroom working with them every step of the way. And that gives us the opportunity to work with students that so many have had challenges working with, right? And I could share a story about one of the justice impacted individuals that we've worked with over the years. I was down in Louisiana, and I met a young man. I was going down to work with a number of state directors for career and technical education, and there was a young man that had taken our program, but prior to getting into the program, he was homeless on the streets of New Orleans, 14 years old, in survival mode, and he did something unspeakable and got a juvenile life sentence. And while he grew up in the juvenile system, he kind of stayed away from education. But we had a fantastic instructor that was in there, Mr. Allen, and Mr. Allen put a warm hand out to Joshua, got him involved in the program, and he just excelled. All of a sudden, that light bulb went on and that sense of confidence, and he was able to get through the program, get a few certifications, and when he got out, as an adult in his early 20s, after he served his juvenile life sentence, he got an opportunity through a subcontractor with one of the major carriers in the South. And when I met him, he went from being homeless to buying his first home, supporting his family. He just did a complete turnaround in his life. And that's why I get up every day and do what I do, is we make it about the students, and we meet the students where they are throughout their educational process.
Right. Well, that is 110% why I asked you to join the podcast today. I think that there's not enough people in the space right now that are talking about the folks that actually need the training and the opportunities, not just for to make another buck, but actually because they're looking at this as an opportunity for a step in life. So I love those stories. You know, another aspect about your business, and I would love to understand this about you a little bit more, is that it is family owned and operated. You know, there was a point in my life where there were some directions I wanted to go, and so I had a chance to meet some great professionals. And the guidance that every one of them gave me, all in different business sectors, was, Adam, you can't be afraid to start from the bottom. You can't be afraid to come and work inside the business on all aspects. And you coming from family-owned business, I imagine this was one of the first places you got started. So do you mind sharing with me a little bit, or our guests or our listeners, about what it was like working within an organization where your dad may or may not have been your boss? And I only say that because, again, a lot of the communities that I'm working in, it's not uncommon to have families,
Sure,
you know, working with you, alongside you, near you. It's just the nature of working in community. So if you wouldn't mind sharing a little bit about the backstory there, I'd love to hear a little bit more.
Absolutely. Yeah. So my father, throughout his career, did very well, as I mentioned, working in the computer mainframe industry. And when he ventured out on his own, he got involved in developing different systems that worked with computers, operating systems, things of that nature. And when we got into the telecommunications industry, it was all about the network, right? So when he started out, I was the first employee. I was working as a manufacturing technician, packaging things up, putting things together, and shipping them out, you know, worldwide at the time when we were dealing as a manufacturer, working with diagnostic test equipment. So I grew up in the business. And I've served just about every function, from working in the back office to marketing, as an account manager, you name it. So it's been quite the evolution.
So I think that's important, you know, as folks are looking on who they can trust with this, right? We're talking about I have to laugh, right? This is really the baseline for how all infrastructure in the country is going to be installed, right? So this is about as front line as it gets. I really think that one of the things that I would love to hear you share a little bit more about is the reality that the workforce of today, the demand is there, right? You have massive construction companies that are out there just looking for the folks to participate, right? How are you looking at being able to be a feeder into the place where there's job opportunities? And more importantly, how critical is it that the folks that you are producing as students with certifications and credentials really have that foundation for the infrastructure of our economy and of the way in which our governance systems and society functions?
Sure. No, great question. So again, back to the model. I mean, one of the first steps that we take is to sit down with industry and find out, basically what their job task analysis is on the different areas that they're looking to fill.
Right.
And we build it around that. But the one critical component is we don't assume anything, right? We don't assume the student has a background in technology. It's all about giving them the ability to really crawl, walk, run as they're progressing throughout their educational journey. And we're doing this not only in secondary education with high school age students, as I mentioned, in correctional education institutions around the country, juvenile and adult. We're also working with technical colleges, community and faith-based organizations, you name it, right? So it's a great opportunity to take a look at who your partners are in an area, and then we could come in and assist in deploying that local workforce, right, where the jobs are going to stay local.
That's what I love about the way that the curriculum has been developed. So 160 hours, 6 stackable courses. You don't need previous education or credits. You can come in. A lot of folks in my community are working multiple jobs, or sometimes they're raising, their grandkids, or, there's multiple generations in a household. One of the things in our conversations that I've appreciated is the ability to break up the courses. So sometimes life happens, right? Sometimes people make it through the first 2 or 3 courses, and then life happens.
Yes.
Can you talk a little bit about how the curriculum is meant to accommodate life?
Yes. So, I mean, that at the end
it does
of the
it
day,
in so many ways, right? I mean,
life happens, and whether you're working in a correctional institution or you're working in a public education, things get in the way. So what we've done is we've scaffolded the curriculum where we start out with the fundamentals, right? Telecommunications technologies, and in 40 hours, a student can walk out with a credential, or they could progress to the next level and get into networking and POE, right? The connected world today, another 40 hours. Then they get into the fundamentals of fiber optics. They get into outside plant fiber optic splicing, safety systems, and as it scaffolds up, the time gets shorter and shorter. So if you have 160 to 200 hours, you can go through our entire model today, but still have exit points into a career, which is so important, right?
That is. Well, I think the other benefit I see is it's instructor-led. I think so many of the communities, again, that you'll hear me say it, I'm working in, they're hands-on. I can really appreciate the fact that, like, I didn't learn how to drive a car by watching the videos in driver's ed.
Right.
I learned to drive a car by having the football coach, who happened to be the driver's ed instructor at my school, literally sit in the car and tell me not to get hit by a semi-truck and use my blinker, right? So what I love about this, the way in which you guys are delivering the curriculum is it's not a one-size-fits-all, right? I think you'll be the first person to say that. This is one style in which students can learn. But what I love about it is that it's in-person, train the trainer, mobile.
Yes.
And it's an investment that people can make into an ongoing education within their community once the curriculum and the kits are in place, correct?
Correct. And that's just it, right? So part of the model is to address all the different learning styles and modalities that students could potentially have coming in, whether they're hands-on, visual, auditory. That's all integrated into the curriculum. Now, certainly, it's 60, 70% hands-on because that's the nature of the work that needs to be done when they go out to work on the networks, deploy the networks, and all the infrastructure that we're dealing with today. So that's all integrated into the curriculum.
Right. So, one other thing that I think is unique is that how many folks actually could benefit from the curriculum itself. I think that there's a lot of traditional users like ISPs, right, for example, folks that are operating a network and they have customers, and that's great. But you also, as we've been talking, there's nuances in this space as well, where it's, healthcare providers, they're technicians. We've been talking about the need for gaming facilities. There's so much fiber optics running through these facilities?
Connectivity is everywhere, right? When I started out, right, we were dealing with dial-up and DSL, right?
Quarters. So you're still putting a quarter in.
Exactly. And today, we've had students, for instance, go out and work on crews where they were retrofitting the Statue of Liberty for fiber optics, right? We had students go out in Texas at a Wyndham School District, and the largest jumbotron at the time in the NFL, this Sony jumbotron, had tens of thousands of nodes of fiber optic cable, and it was our graduates right out of the program working on that project. Even over in Tennessee and the Grand Ole Opry, when they were putting in the sound stage, the lighting systems, all the connectivity systems, and across the street at the Omni Hotel, it was our graduates out of the Tennessee colleges of applied technology. And right here in California, in the vineyards where we are today, we have graduates running the backbone to monitor the advanced irrigation systems, right?
Love it.
So,
smart ag.
It's everywhere. And with IoT and now AI, with data centers, it's just getting greater and greater and greater. And there's so much demand out there.
When we talk about the curriculum delivery and how unique it can be in meeting different people, I think that's really kind of one of the nuances and specialties about how you guys are delivering. But I also want to talk a little bit about the length in which the organization has been around, right? I think a lot of people are looking for trusted relationships in this space. They want to know that when they team up with somebody to work on something as critical as workforce, that you're not going to run away. And as we talked about in the beginning here, this is a family-owned business. You guys have been around for 35 years, which is a big reason why I'm a supporter of this curriculum and what you guys are doing, because I understand and see the impact at the varying levels. But there's also an impact, I think, that this work has done as it relates to who you are, right? You did get a chance to see this business grow over your lifetime. You're a little older than 35 years old, but you're definitely...
Don't tell anybody.
I'm not saying anything to anybody. But there's impacts that I think that this work has made on you. And we've had a chance to talk about this, but I also think, again, a big part of getting beyond the noise with what we're doing here with this show is getting people to understand the stories of the people in this industry. And, your family in particular, I think, has left an impressive legacy. And one of the things that I would like to hear a little bit more is, why do you continue on in this space? Is there a moment that happened in your life that led you to say, you know what, this is what I want to do. This is where my passion lies. And you wake up every day to do this? Because there's layers in there. There has to be, but I'd love to understand the why.
No, outstanding question. So I've met a lot of great people over the years. In my youth, my father being an entrepreneur, we moved around a lot, right? One house, one state to another. And as a kid, I was kind of more on the introverted side. So I was always having to force myself to
never would have believed that.
Get out of my comfort zone, right? Get out of my own way.
Okay.
And I was constantly meeting new people and creating new relationships, and some that I've had, for many, many years. But that drive in me to be able to kind of go outside of my comfort zone led me to an opportunity to teach on the Navajo Nation. And at the time, I was teaching commercial art, graphic design before computers were a thing, right? They were there, but it was a lot of hands-on, tactile development. I even got into photography. I even got into painting, drawing, sculpting. It was all part of the program that we offered. And I learned so much from my students that it was that aha moment as to, this is what I want to do. This is how I want to impact people's lives by giving them skills to be successful. Back then, we were preparing artwork to be sold down in Phoenix at the Heard Museum. And fast forward to today, we're providing broadband telecommunications training skills to thousands of institutions all around the country, right? And it's just been amazing. We've impacted hundreds of thousands of students based on the model. But that's why I get up every day. It's because we make it about the students, and we make it about their opportunity to become, based on this training, to become successful in their lives and support themselves and their families within their community, right? They can stay within their community to do that.
That's right. So I'm just going to share a little bit more on the Navajo story. I think that, you know, as I've been getting to know you over the last few years, again, I haven't pulled any punches since we started this podcast. I ran David through the ringer because you really got to, you know, understand the person you're working with. And more importantly, as many of you understand that are working in this space, it's all relationship driven.
Sure.
Right. We all got to be mindful about what those relationships are. And so I'm always careful when I start to talk about bringing people into the communities I work in, like indigenous populations and tribes. And one of the first times I met David, I couldn't put my finger on it, how come he was so comfortable. And then I learned he lived on Navajo for, you know, a few years. And the experiences that he had that came from there, you know, only one made me laugh. I mean, you had your motorcycle stolen, your house had some artistic work done to the side of it,
sure,
which is as funny and familial as it can get for me. But it gave you some street cred too, right? I think that it's important when we start looking at organizations and we're building that trust that they also that like it's a two-way street. What I appreciate how you've brought your work into the space is that you really are meeting people where they are. And I think that the Navajo story was a great example of that. But there is another one that I did want to talk to, which is, and it does come back to your dad, right? You went on this journey to figure out, you're out in Navajo, you realize I love teaching. You kind of started off with your dad's business to begin with, and with C-Tech, and it grew. And then you had this epiphany moment where you decided this you enjoy changing lives. You enjoy making the impact. What is it about your dad that has brought you to a point where you choose every day, David, to wake up with, yes, the drive, but again, you're functioning with honesty, integrity, and accountability in your work? You've done that. Your dad did that. But what about your dad? Like, why did he do that?
So my dad was a very spiritual individual. His faith, his family was very important to him. And in order to provide meaning in your work, you've got to be building something that's going to help and empower other people. And that's how we evolved into the training aspects with C-Tech. And I can recall he had this famous line, right? And he would say it all the time. And as a kid, I'd say, all right, Dad, you know, I've heard it 100 times. But he'd always say, you live your life between your ears. And that has so much meaning, right? Because if you can get it in your mind that you can empower other people or make a difference in the world, and then get out of your own way, right? And be a doer and get that work done, you can do anything, right? Not just the dreamers. There's a lot of dreamers out there, but he taught me to be a doer, right? And to do it for the right reasons. And that's one of the reasons why I'm so passionate about what we're doing at C-Tech. And it helps me feel really good, not only about putting my head down to sleep at night, but getting up in the morning to do it all over again the next day. It's all about leveling the playing field and providing an equal opportunity for all learners to be successful. And in doing that, you're empowering communities. You're giving communities the opportunity to thrive with a local workforce in one of the largest growth markets in the world today. I mean, it's everywhere, like we just talked about.
There's a massive infusion of federal dollars, right? You have $42.5 billion from BEAD. You got a few $1 billion from the Tribal Broadband Program. You have the buckets at the FCC, the USDA. I mean, there is more money on the street today to solve, quote unquote, the infrastructure problem than there ever has been. But we continue to see this gap in the workforce, right? What I love about the story you just shared is that it's not just about training the workforce with the skills. It's also about training the workforce with the integrity needed to engage in community as well, right? A lot of these technicians are going out, and you and I have had a lot of conversation about this. We're right off the heels of a conference going on in Phoenix around digital inclusion and access. But what I love here is is how you're taking a model that meets people where they're at, but also there's a recognition that the soft skills need to be talked about in this space too.
Yes.
Right? Because I think sometimes, these technicians, they show up and everybody, everybody's one track. I either help people figure out their internet on their, their password or their bank account or whatever, or I'm the guy that wears the hard hat and I splice fiber.
Sure.
And what you and I have seen in most of these communities is that a lot of times you need both.
You absolutely do. I mean, 1 minute you're the hero, you're coming in to do the install. The next minute, you better fix this problem
That's
here.
Right.
You know
That's
what
right.
I mean? And we integrate that into the curriculum, right? We call them the essential skills. Of course, they're soft skills or life skills, but they're essential, right? You've got to be able to deal with complaints. You've got to be able to put on your best face when you come into an opportunity to be able to install something or fix something, right?
That's right.
So much of that is included. And then we have a whole connecting the business piece that prepares the students that have achieved these multiple stackable industry recognized credentials and prepares them for the workforce specific to broadband telecommunications infrastructure, and then how to network with those organizations that we've already made connections with and prepare their resumes, maybe for the first time, maybe they never had a career before. So how to do a working resume. That's all part of our process.
Let me ask you something else, because I'm sure there's folks out there that are going, okay, Adam, we get it. We got to do the soft skills. We recognize that,
Sure.
that you got to smile and help people.
Everybody's doing it, right?
Everybody's doing it, right? But I'm sure there's folks out there that are going, okay, this is really cool, but does he train on the kind of systems or equipments that I have? So, how do you approach when, you have one group of folks or client that uses one system or set of products from an OEM or set of OEMs, ODMs, and how are you treating that if there's customization on the kit, or does it impact that? So does it really matter whose stuff it is?
So we look at it from the standpoint of the fundamentals, right? So we're going to look at the market. We're going to find out what are the common trends in technology, right? The common tools, the common devices, and break it down and use that as part of the model, right? So we manufacture all our training aids. We manufacture all the student workstations that they're...
American made, just out of curiosity, those stateside?
Yes, stateside.
Okay.
And we even publish the curriculum based on the feedback we're getting from industry, and we put that model for 7th grade reading, basic math. We're getting 98% completion, 90% certification, and in most markets, we're well over 75% placement in a related technical field, sometimes a lot higher, and in other situations, like, for instance, a juvenile correctional setting, it might be a little lower, but we're at 48-50%, which is a huge win in that environment.
Wow.
So, and that's all about the model that I was sharing before. How do we integrate all those aspects of our approach, and then we can add to it, right, and customize it based on employers' specific demands, right?
Gotcha.
So they're going to have the fundamentals. They're going to have a vested interest in the technologies. They're going to have a good attitude, right? Ideally, they've already found out this is what I want to do. So that takes a lot of the guesswork out of somebody being hired off the street and then having to train them and find out that they're leaving.
Right.
But once they're in, we had a young man through one of our industry partnerships that got picked up by AT&T in Dallas, and within a year, less than a year, he was brought on to a team that typically takes more than a decade to get into, and he was sharing it was attributable to the curriculum and the training that we provided. So we can break it down to whatever level is necessary, but we're going to provide the fundamentals to get there.
And you're also open to the evolution of, right? You're in recognition. I think it's another benefit that I've seen as we've engaged over the years is you're not static as it relates to the curriculum, right? You're always looking for updates. One of the things that we're scratching the surface on that's going to be really interesting is workforce training and development as it relates to AI. How is C-Tech preparing for the future as it relates to training?
Great question. So we're always looking at future trends and technology. We're always ahead of the market in terms of what's coming, but you don't want to be too soon, right?
Sure.
So, I mean, AI has been around for a long time, but it's moving at a rapid pace right now, as we all know. So AI, as an example, right? We're looking at ways that we can integrate our training with tools that students could utilize when they're out in the job. But the job right now is hands-on, in the trenches, doing the physical work, whereas AI can come in and provide them a lot of support on maybe how to diagnose a situation or reference something that they're encountering out in the field. So that's all being looked at, and we're doing that in so many different areas. I mean, we have the wireless 5G applications, the satellite applications, safety applications. We're always looking at ways to strengthen and improve on the curriculum.
Love it. Well, I think, you know, another thing that I just think is neat about the ability to customize some of the curriculum is, you know, some of the stakeholders that I've been working with and that are out in the space right now are governments. So the ability to set your own standards, your own requirements as it relates to your network, I think is a thing that we'll likely see coming into the future as standards evolve. You know, that being said, I do want to transition a little bit into a little bit more about you in the organization. You know, earlier I had a chance to tell a story, and you shared a story about your time out on Navajo Nation. But you don't just choose to do this work because, you know, it's just you just wake up one day. It's a calling for a lot of people that are in the education space. You know, it's not always, you know, the best pay. There's a lot of challenges associated with the students sometimes that you're working with. But I really want to understand, you know, as you look to the future of workforce training and education, how are you thinking about those moments of sacrifice or growth that are shaping the direction of the company that you're with?
So, I mean, for me, I mean, it started out, as I mentioned, you know, growing up in the business, and I took an opportunity to go out to the Navajo Nation, and that didn't just come out of thin air. I used to spend my summers down in Kentucky, and I was basically volunteering my time to build homes for low-income families, and I would do that every summer, right? I'd be basically put up in a barn, sleeping in a barn, bathing in a creek, and out on the work site all day. And what that did for me is it put me around like-minded people, right? And that's how I discovered the opportunity out in Arizona, right? Through someone I met who was a public defender who was donating their time over the summer out of Philadelphia, who had taught out in Arizona years prior. And that lit the fire. And I went out there, and I probably learned more from those students than they could have ever taught me. But it set me up for what we're doing today, right? And it's all about helping students be successful in whatever it is that they want to pursue, right? And we just happen to be in a great market in terms of broadband telecommunications.
I love it. You know, it's always nice when you can solve a problem that folks have, and in the same vein, be able to support, you know, the growth of a business as you do that. So I think that's awesome in terms of how you've been able to kind of take some of those life lessons and keep focused while also continue to grow the assets that you need to help people. You've brought a couple of items, but the first one I was hoping you could share with us a little bit about was the Navajo basket.
Absolutely. Now, it was a very pivotal time in my career, you know, having taught out on the Navajo Nation, and the graduating class had presented me with this ceremonial basket, and the basket represents in the middle, right? It's basically a map
better go east, huh?
in which we chart our lives from the beginnings, right, to the life's many challenges as you work out into the darker areas, to life-giving energy, the good times, right, the overcoming adversity and those challenges. But what I love so much about it, and it has so much more meaning today, is that path here where it lets light in and a pathway for your thoughts. And little did I know that a quarter century ago, my life's work was going to remain in education because of what I discovered teaching out on the Navajo Nation and the impact that education has on students' lives, right? So, as I mentioned, I was teaching graphic design before computers were a big thing, commercial art, right? We were preparing things for the Heard Museum for sale. So I had students go on to be architects, engineers, designers, artisans, and that's a great reminder that it all starts somewhere and progresses on no matter what we need to overcome along the way.
You know, I think that the adversity that comes in front of folks, we all face it, right? Mm-hmm. I really like the symbolism that the basket provides in demonstrating that there's always a pathway to light and things that are positive and good. That doesn't mean you don't have to go through some of the challenges. You know, another person that you and I have had a chance to get to know a little bit over some time here is Miss Lorinda Sanchez with the CIMC. And I'm just going to share a story with everybody. Great lady, right?
Yes.
Over 40 years dedicated.
Yes.
Lorinda, we need to have you on the show, but over 40 years dedicated to bringing people into career pathways. And, you know, we had a chance to sit down. I'm just going to share the story. We had a chance to sit down with Lorinda, and I didn't tell her who I was bringing. I just said, we need to talk workforce. Now, context, Lorinda knows me from when I was a kid and got me my first set of work boots on the trash truck in my local community, one of my first jobs I ever had. And I have to laugh. We sit down for breakfast. David makes the trip out. We go through the introductions. We start to say hello. You know, Adam, how's your mom? You go, right? It's all family, like we talked about. A lot of this is relationships. Adam, how's your mom? What's going on? You know, and what are we here to talk about today? And we didn't even say the name C-Tech. We just let her start to tell the stories of where she has worked in this space in the past. And all of a sudden, this suitcase comes up about how she's been carrying it around for 30 years.
The silver suitcase.
The silver suitcase, which when we were talking about those mobile units and again, meeting stakeholders or folks, our students where they need to be taught.
Yes.
That was 30 years ago. And I had to laugh because we didn't say a word about C-Tech or the organization. And as we're talking about what we're trying to do, she says, well, is it like this organization, C-Tech? Because I still carry this thing around. And David, what was the thing that was the jaw dropper for both of us? It was who she worked with.
Yes.
Who did she work with?
My father.
Your
my
dad.
My father. She said the Irishman. Yeah.
Yeah. Go figure. Right. And you know, back to the impact of community and in the legacy of the work that is being done at C-Tech, what I loved about that story was not just the fact that she knew of your dad and the curriculum, but the place in which it was deployed. Mm-hmm. You know, you were doing workforce training in Indian country in a field that very few people were doing this training in 30 years ago. And here we are today, we bring this forward and the relationships are still there and still strong from the work that you guys have done. Again, another reason why I'm excited to be really just picking your brain and understanding, you know, what are the ethics and the values behind your organization, how you guys function, because that's a testimony that you just don't get anywhere. You don't walk into these communities and have that kind of a response. I've seen that maybe 2 other times in my entire life.
Sure.
You know, impressive stuff. But that led me to thinking a little bit more about the legacy of your work. And, you know, one of the other items that I had asked you to talk about was, and I appreciate you bringing the Navajo basket. That's an important legacy. But as we make our way through the aspects and the impacts of life, you know, you also had a chance to pick up a diamond or two along the way. So I would love to hear a little bit more about your work and the Blue Diamond certificate honoring that you received for your work in workforce training.
Yes. So another very pivotal time in my career. It was rather recent. I had just taken over the responsibility as president and CEO of the C-Tech corporations, and another one of our long-standing partners, one of the larger school districts around the country that we've been working with, had presented me this diamond, right? Because why? Diamonds are forever, and the impact that we have on students' lives can be forever, right? When we do it in the right way, and that's what we've been doing all these years, is putting these students on a pathway to prosperity and ultimately changing lives. And this particular organization, the United Federation of Teachers, is over the New York City Department of Education, and I've witnessed students become educators. Those same very educators become administrators. Those administrators become union delegates, leaders of the union. And then others who right after the 12th grade went out and got this amazing career opportunity in telecommunications. And let me tell you, a lot of them making double, triple what I know that most make right when they get out of college. And this is right out of high school, having experienced our program. So life-changing. So not just in rural areas, but cities. And it's just been an incredible journey. And I think with what you were saying a little bit earlier about that silver suitcase, that represents individuals' lives being changed, getting into a career. So through her, we were working with the Choctaw and the Chickasaw Nation, and here in Northern California through her organization. So just been incredible over the years.
That's awesome. Well, I think, those stories exemplify, I think, a couple core values that we're trying to promote here on the show. Family, I think at the end of the day, is you've probably picked up on the undertone here, right? Family is why I think we all do the things that we do, right? We go out, we gain the education or the paycheck or whatnot, so we can come home and we can enjoy our families. The other part that I really appreciate about as you're talking about this, I can see the smile on your face. You have joy, right? And I think that so many folks out there are just chasing a paycheck, or they're looking for something out there that they're really not going to find. And what's beautiful about the way in which you've grown your business and the way in which your family has fostered this is you've kept those two components front and center, right? You had the family first. You know that if you keep the family first, you have joy in the work you're doing, which I love. And you're having victory, you're having success over all of this. I think that there's some things that everybody can learn as we're competing against one another, I guess, in the rat race of industry. Sure. But one of the things that I think is important to me here is if you were to tell me at the end of the day, who has really shaped the future of the organization and the lens in which you are doing the work you're doing, again, putting your family first, ensuring that you have joy in the work that you're doing and victory over your challenges. Who instilled those values in you? Where did that come from?
So I mean, my father played a very active role in that very early on, and he, provided leadership, mentorship, and direction throughout my entire career. And even prior to that, I've met some great people, some great coaches, some great teachers, some great mentors over the years. But it was my father that took me under his wing as an apprentice, and I worked my way through the entire organization that gave me the confidence and that sense of adventure to take risks and make things happen. And what that's led to today is we strive to bring in great people into the organization. I have cousins, I had nieces and nephews work with me, siblings work with me. But at the end of the day, if you have that drive and that tenacity to make things happen and work with people to provide them an opportunity for a better life in what we do, those are the types of people we want to continue to work with. And that's family, right? That at the end of the day, whether your last name's Brady or not, that's family. People that share that same common goal to move it down the road and be successful in what they're doing. So I attribute a lot of that to my father and a lot of the great people that I've worked with over the years.
I love it. Now, you're a dad, right?
Yes.
How many kids do we have, David?
I have 2.
Boys, girls?
One of each. Blessed with one of each.
He's got a good mix. How much of the work that you're doing do they run through your head? Because I know I was out, over the last 15, 20 years, definitely wasn't a dad the full 15, 20 years. Father of 4, oldest is 8. For those of you that don't know me, that they run through my head every single day.
Yes.
How does your children impact your work and where you're leading your business and how you see them in it?
Well, as you know, it never ends, right? So when you're working and you're out making a difference in the world, when you get home to your home, right, to the house, you're still doing that, right? Because you're mentoring and training your students and loving your children to be the best people they can be. And that's not always easy, right? When you're out working every day and you want to come home and relax.
I can promise you that the people listening to this podcast that are road warriors like yourself and me absolutely can relate to that.
Especially with the little ones,
That's
right?
right.
You know,
That's
they
right.
need a lot of attention. So my children are just wonderful. And they get excited with me about the things that we're doing. They love to come to work with me and see what's going on behind the scenes and imagine about being part of that someday. And that's what it's all about.
It's an exciting legacy to be leaving. Is there it's an important legacy to be leaving. Is there anything, as we've been kind of going through this interview and talking about life, and sure, some workforce pieces alongside that. Is there anything that just is top of mind that you're like, Adam, I don't want to end this podcast before we have this. I need to say this. Is there a message that you have to either the industry folks or the government folks or the student that's just curious out there about pathways? Is there a message that you want to leave folks with before we shut these cameras off and go enjoy the rest of our evening here at the Hunter Mazzetti Winery located on the Rincon Indian Reservation?
So, yes. So bringing it back to our core mission, and that's to serve the student, have the student be successful in their lives. I was just at an event, and there was a gentleman who took our program about 25 years ago in the state of Pennsylvania, and he had gotten exposed to our program because he had been incarcerated and sentenced to a boot camp in Pennsylvania.
Wow.
And at the time, he didn't have parental supervision. He was kind of out making a go of it on his own, got into a gang, in and out of the juvenile system. Got into our program, right? And all of a sudden, because it was a boot camp, he started to have some life skills, some discipline instilled into him, when to get up, when to take breaks and all that, that structure. Yep. But they invested in his education, and it happened to be the C-Tech program. And when I met Melvin for the first time, his name is Melvin Williams, he shared his story, and his story was this, right? He got involved with C-Tech training because the state saw an opportunity to invest in him, and he took to it and got out and got this amazing career opportunity, right, that evolved. And he started his own business. He did so well. He got into telecommunications sales. I think it had something to do with why he was incarcerated to begin with. But he took it and put it to good use.
Entrepreneur. I think we call those entrepreneurs.
Yes, with the telecommunications background, and ended up starting his own business. And what he shared with me is he was recruiting people out of our program, right, in the Philadelphia market, and that he just recently retired and started a foundation where he wants to give back to his community by offering this program and mentorship and leadership. And he basically was sharing how this program changed his life, right? If he didn't have that, he wouldn't be where he is today because someone believed in him and he took advantage of that. So that's the message that I have for everyone listening in today. Make it about your local community. Make it about the students that you serve, because that, at the end of the day, is who we want in our community doing the work, right? People that are part of that community.
That's right.
And that is so important.
That's right. I think what I love about this discussion is that it focuses on the entirety of what the community is. Mm-hmm. Everybody thinks, I don't know, maybe I've just grown up in a generation where everybody thought they were going to be a doctor and a lawyer, and the reality is
right.
That isn't the case.
Right.
That doesn't mean that there aren't plenty of opportunities out there for folks that want to engage, be a part, and lift up their community or be a part of the opportunities that are coming. So, David, I really want to thank you for spending the time. Just for our viewers, you've trekked all the way out here from Southern California from New Jersey, your own time, your own dime, your own nickel. And I just want to thank you for being a guest on the Megabyte Me podcast, but more importantly, for sharing a part of who you are as we cut beyond the noise and we really get to the core values of family, joy, and victory over the challenges that we face as we megabyte these challenges sitting in front of us.
I appreciate you having us here today. It's been a pleasure, and certainly share your enthusiasm for the great work that we're all doing in this market.
I love it. David, real quick before we sign off, where can folks go to find out a little bit more about what you do and some more information about the curriculum that you offer?
Sure. Yeah, feel free to go to ctechprograms.com. That's ctechprograms.com. And you can basically click on the link that you see, and someone will be in touch to set up a time to meet with you. And we welcome that.
Awesome. Well, thanks again for taking the time out. And as always, Nishun Lovakum. Thank you.
Thank you.
Chasing paper, party all night and we sleep all day. Movers, shakers, Wall Street blazers, heels so high they about to break. I want that. Ooh, level up, that's my kind of vibe. And if you want that